Hello and welcome to the Yukon Entrepreneur Podcast Series. I'm your host, Carrie Johnston, and this is a podcast all about how Yukon businesses are adapting during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm recording today on the traditional territory of Champagne and Ajax First Nations in beautiful Dakwakata-Haines Junction, and my guest today is Les Walker. Les, please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Les Walker, Champagne Ajax citizen, father, Yukon citizen, born and raised. And I also run a construction company up here in the Yukon called Walker Home Construction.
Great. And how long has Walker Home Construction been operating?
You mean above board or? I think I got my business license in 2009, but I was taking on small contracts before that. But I think it was in 2009 because I looked this up a couple of years ago. So.
Sure. And who's your customer? Who do you serve?
Basically Yukon. We haven't got out of the Yukon, although the company has been expanding the last few years. So I am looking in those directions. I like to look at the consistency of work for my guys, and given the small population of the Yukon, there is a lot of demand. But I'm always kind of looking to say, well, is there some other investments to look at in BC? Champagne Ajax is like, I don't know what they call it, but they're both members of the Yukon, are First Nations, and they're also members of BC First Nations. And so they have the right to go into BC. So I'm looking at that as an option for us to say, hey, maybe we can get into there, and there is some opportunities, but we haven't yet. So.
And in the height of construction season, how many sort of employees-ish do you have?
Well, it changes, the cycle of employees, but right now we seem to be somewhere between 30 and 40. Like I think right now we're up towards 40, and I'm looking for more. But in the wintertime, you kind of lose some people in the winter. They don't want to work. Your core group is like, I just want to work year round. I want to have the consistency of it. But so in the wintertime, it's a little less. But right now, I think we're somewhere around 40.
And what have you learned about your customer during the pandemic over the last couple of years? What's it been like in the construction industry?
Well, it's hard up here. We don't have the access to materials, and I think customers are generally they want to have the homes that they want, and they want to be able to afford that. And with the changing climate, interest rates are going up, and availability of product is going up, and the demand is going up. It just, since the pandemic, it's just seemed like there's twice as many, if not 3 times as many jobs than there are companies and carpenters. And so it's just a major amount of pressure with a lot of roadblocks that have been put in the last few years that I think it's hard to navigate through that. It's hard to see, to talk to customers, and they're like, I've called people for 3 years and not one carpenter even showed up. And then I show up, and I know that I'm not going to be able to help them because my schedule is super busy. And it's like, we need to be able to address this somehow. But at least there, I think that the customers are just, some of them are really frustrated about the access to carpenters, the access to labor, and access to materials, for sure.
Have you noticed supply chain disruption in your line of work over the last 2 years in particular?
Yeah, it's been a lot easier for me since the company started expanding, because places like Kilrich and Home Hardware kind of set aside a core amount, and they kind of give us a heads up to say, because of the volume of materials that we're buying, especially Kilrich, they always, Rob always calls me, or Scott always calls me and says, hey, heads up, like it's going to start getting crazy. Do you want anything? And so we got lucky before the pandemic because we got a nice contract, a couple nice contracts through the Rapid Housing Initiative. And so we knew about 30 plus houses that we would have to build. So we approached Rob, we pre-committed to everything. And we ended up having that material come in. So for us, it wasn't as bad, but for everybody else, it's like you couldn't get plywood, you couldn't get, like there's so many things where it's like all of that. You're kind of like you're in the twilight zone. You don't know what it's going to be, and then when you go there, things are twice as expensive as well too. So if you're quoting prices and you're telling customers, hey, it's this much, and then you can't get that product for 3 months, and oh, by the way, by the time it gets here, it's going to be 50% more. Like you're in a high stressful place, and so you have to navigate through that. I think communication with the customer, communication with the lumberyards, they were able to address a lot of that, but you can't address everything. The need is greater than the ability to supply.
Hey Les, thinking back, like way back to when all this sort of started, what was your first memory of realizing that this pandemic was going to be a really big deal? Like, what was your first memory of the news kind of hitting you?
We're kind of like disconnected up here in the Yukon. We're protected, right? Like for the amount of money we get, for the amount of people that live here through FTAs, we're kind of spoiled up here in the Yukon. So, and I think things affect us a little later. I've never been through something like this, and honestly, when I was younger, I struggled with a lot of stuff, being a single father and that kind of stuff. So my intention was survival. But in the last few years, I've become, well, maybe the last 15, I've become more political and more invested into issues greater than my own, greater than my family, greater than my community. So it's, when I think that when it really hit me was when the Yukon shut down, and it was like, you can't leave, you can't come in, you can't come out. And I'm like, that was kind of scary. It was like, you flashes of like movies and books that you've read. You're like, how far is this going to go? Right. Like, so that to me was like a real kind of wake up call to say, this is serious. And then obviously, like just hearing people pass away, it's one thing to hear something that's outside of your circle, but when it starts touching people inside of your circle, you're like, this is okay, this is real, right? Like, so I think those two things for me, it was like, okay, something's, this is might take a while.
Which of the public health measures have you found the most challenging in operating your business?
I'm a guy that likes to look you in the face and shake your hand. I'll give you a hug if I can. I'm very emotional. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I like to connect with people, and I like to talk to people. The breakdown in relationships, I think, as far as communication and connection, was really big for me. The other things are just like, honestly, I was raised in group homes and foster homes. Like there was always rules. Like this is what you do, this is where you go, you can't go here, you can't access here. So I actually adapt really well to certain things, although I have an adversity to authority too, because I'm always like, why do I have to do this, right? Like, but I think that it's yeah, I mean, like that connection part of it was a big thing. I don't think for us, we weren't really affected with the lockdowns like others were, because we were considered let me think, I don't want to misquote this, but there was a critical service, what was the other one?
An essential
service.
Critical and essential.
Yeah. So you're an essential service if you're like building and providing certain things, but then you're a critical service if you are supplying materials to an essential service. So we got deemed as a critical service, so we could actually leave the territory and come back, because we had to, because of one of the other things with the demand of materials. I'm the type of guy that if you say I can't get something for 3 months, I'm going to shop around, and I don't mind driving down south if I can get that in 2 weeks. So it takes a little bit of effort. Excuse me. So, but we ended up doing that in a lot of cases where it's like, look, we need all this stuff. They have it right here in Edmonton. We can go down there So I would coordinate that, and so it didn't quite affect us as much, but it was still scary, like you go through and there was like, you got to go through the security checks and they're looking at you and like questioning things. They're like, it's like, and it's like I said, for me, and the things that I've experienced in my life, it is a scary thing. It's how far are they going to take this, right? Like, and but I think that it's also good to understand that we need to be safe, right? And I understand that too. So I like, when I was in politics, I kind of had to teach myself not to take things personally. Like I said, I wear my heart on my sleeve. So if you don't say hi to me in the morning and you pass me, I'm like, oh, is she mad at me? Right? Like, but I mean, like, it's about teaching myself that, hey, even if I feel a certain way, the general, I'm open to listening to a general consensus of the population to say, okay, I might not agree with you, but I can respect you, and when we're around each other, I can definitely make sure to adjust the way that I communicate and the way that we react, or the way that we interact.
You mentioned like a security checkpoint. Was that the Watson Lake,
Yeah,
like BC Yukon border checkpoint that you were talking about? Yeah, because that
yeah,
was up for the first, well, almost year of the pandemic. Eh?
yeah. That's the
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
And we ended
Yeah.
up going through there a few times.
Yeah.
Eventually they get to know you. So
Yeah. Yeah, and it was odd having, like, I mean, that border exists, but we often, like in normal times, we don't really think too much about that border between Yukon and British Columbia. It's just a line on a map in many ways.
and it's, it's funny because it's like, in one way, that one road in, one road out protected us from a lot of exposure. So it made sense to me. It's like, it definitely makes sense. And I've been in that political role, and I know how hard it is to make those decisions. And I know how many elements of pressure that you deal with, especially if it's an election year. No, but I do think that, like I said, it's made me start thinking that we rely so much on one road in, one road out, that maybe we need to start thinking about supplying our own stuff. And maybe we need to start doing that, because if this ever happens again, or if it gets worse, what are we going to do? Like, we're going to be the last ones to get food. We're going to be the last ones to get supplies. And is there a way to start for us? Because we have resources, we've got ability, we've got a lot of young people and old people that have skills that we could start manufacturing our own stuff. We could start mass producing these things and selling them to ourselves. And if we do good enough, we might even be able to ship that down and have something to go in other places. So it definitely got me thinking, this is a flaw of the Yukon, is so dependent on this one access road, that my mind is always thinking about, where are we going with this? So
yeah, especially now with flood and forest fire season upon us again, and how quickly we can lose that access to any emergency.
Mm-hmm.
What we've all kind of had to adapt to this new normal. What sort of adaptations have you taken on during the pandemic that you're most proud of in your business?
I don't know. That's a hard question. I think that you have to be able to adapt, and like, I think that I don't know, like, I think that we were in a good place to adapt to the pandemic. And the group of people that we work with, like, we're a family, and we've created that, and that's what got us through. So I think we had those elements in place so that we could continue to grow as other people were having struggles. We were growing and expanding. I think the foundation was built. I think that what probably one of the things is, nothing is guaranteed. And I've kind of always lived my life like that, like growing up in the foster care system. You never know. Am I going to be here today? Where am I going to sleep tonight? If I run away, I got to figure that out. How am I going to feed myself? So there's always been that mentality in how I look at things. Like, I never feel like that I have something until almost until it's already done, right? Like it's like, okay, it's done. And then I'm the type of person that I won't spend $1 of money until I know that that project is done and we're on to another one. So I think it just accentuated the reason for those kinds of things, and to be cautious about that. But also I think that probably to backtrack on what I just said is that one of the things I think is just understanding that every single person has a different opinion. And even though we might be a company with multiple people, some people are very afraid of it, and some people are very, dismissive of it. And we have to, it's our job to not just separate those people. It's our job to bring them together. And it's so easy to hate somebody or to judge somebody, but it's with a little bit more effort to try to understand where that person is coming from. I think that's probably the biggest thing that we got out of this, is to say, it's just to be able to meet people where they're at, and to be able to accept everything how they feel, and be able to communicate them and create a structure that allows them to continue to be a part of what we're doing.
And what have you learned about your business model over the last 2 years? I mean, you just said you designed for emergence, you designed for resilience and adaptation sort of at your core. Have you learned anything else about your business model over the last 2 years?
It's been kind of overwhelming in a way, because I fundamentally started this company so that I could be a father. I felt like I was, I wasn't acknowledged as a father, and that was never equated to how good of a worker I was. So what I'm trying to say is that it doesn't matter if I worked 12-hour days and showed up all the time and worked. If I needed one day off because my daughter was sick, I'd always be treated like I was basically useless. Like give them to the mom, give her to the grandma. It's like, they're not around. Like, I'm a single father, and that really hurt me coming from my background. And so I started the company so that I could be valued as a father and valued as a worker equally. So I could create that. So all I did was offer that to the employees. And so that foundation was kind of attracted a high level of employees that are really committed to the company. And they feel like they're a part of it. They're not just working for me. We're together, we're doing things together. So in the last 2 years, we applied for some business expansion grants and loans, and to do a prefab shop, and it just exploded. So it's hard to kind of, that question that you asked me, it's hard because it's like, we went from maybe having 12 employees to, in 1 year, 30, and then to the next year, 40. And then now we need more, right? Like, so there's a lot that happened. And then all of that expansion is happening while COVID is locking down and we're dealing with all these obstacles. So it's not survival, but you're on the battlefield, and you're making decisions as they're coming. And every time, you think you're on solid ground, then something else there's another element. So it's not about suffering that. It's just about achieving what we're trying to do in a way that's in line with our core the values of the company and the values that we have. So there's a lot in there. So it's hard to answer that question. It's because of all of it. It all happened at once. So it's been an amazing couple of years, and it's been the hardest couple of years of our company. So
I think you did answer the question, Les.
Okay.
Did you access any of the pandemic related supports for your business? Any of the huh?
100%.
Yeah. Any that were the most helpful for you as an employer?
I think that the most helpful is when an employee is sick and they have to go home, and you're forced to go home. Like, they might have allergies, and you know that every year that they have allergies, but now it says if they have a sniffle, you got to stay home. And that's frustrating when we have single parents working for us. We've got families that are struggling to pay their bills, and and they're coming up, and it's hard for us to say, you cannot come to work. We're not allowed to have you there. So having that support to say you can stay home and there's a wage that we can apply for, it was really, it was the most support like for that we could offer them, and in a way that that didn't, it wasn't just all on us to try to come up with a solution. The government had that program to say, hey, we understand we're putting these mandates in, but we've got this relief program that we can help families stay home. So that was, I think, the number one for sure.
Did you notice any gaps in the funding opportunities or anything that you needed that wasn't there?
No, I mean, like, no, I don't think so. I can't think of anything. Like, I'm pretty, you know, I'm pro, like, I think that we need to train people and get them working. I don't like seeing people sit at home. Like, I don't like, if somebody is sick, yeah, if you're sick, then you go home. Or if you have, but if you're just sitting at home and you're not sick and you're just getting a check, I don't agree with that. I think that that you have value, that you can offer something. Now, you might not be climbing up ladders and doing this, but maybe you can help over here, or maybe there's another job, or maybe you can help with the kids and take care of them, or maybe, you know, I think that I have a traditional view of life, and I think everybody has a role, and everybody has value, and that value, whether you're the chief or whether you're the guy that, or the person that goes to get firewood, you have the same value. You're bringing something. You're a part of this system, and without that one piece, the whole system it gets affected. And so if you look at everybody like that, then everybody's on the same plane. It's just they have different roles. So that's sort of the way that's the belief that kind of carries me through that.
Mm-hmm. Going forward, how are you thinking about your business differently? Where are you seeing opportunity?
You know, I've got a lot of energy. When I was elected to politics, my energy is high, and I'm always I'm going to show up and be like, we can do it, right? Let's just get this done, right? Like, let's figure it out. And a lot of people would approach me like, oh, that energy, it's gonna come down. It's gonna come down. And eventually, I'm like, why would you even say that? Like, why, if I come to the table with energy and I'm willing to share it, why don't you share it? It'll take a little bit of it. Why don't you, like, let's try something? You know, it's like, I'm super ambitious, and I feel like I have more energy now than I've ever had. I think that coming from a hard upbringing and struggling emotionally, you know, it's physically and emotionally coming through that, and finding out, reconnecting with who I am and my culture and what's important to me, and going through that hard work has showed me that if you set a goal for yourself and you have something that you're passionate about, and you just chase it, no matter what, doesn't matter what anybody says to you, if you follow that and you start achieving things like that, it's like, how many boundaries am I setting for myself to say, well, all I want to do is get my journeymanship. And then you get your journeymanship, like, okay, I did that. Like, well, all I want to do is I get a job year round to pay for my family. And then all of a sudden you do that, and it's like, then I want a house, and then or maybe I'll do this company, and maybe we'll grow the company. And holy cow, what else can I do? Like, what else is out there for me to do? And when you can move towards something with purpose, there is no obstacles. These are just things. It's things. And you can always look to the community that surrounds you, and with all of their knowledge and all of their perspectives, we can figure this out. Now, Zeus on the mountain mentality, I think that you're going to be pretty tunnel visioned, and you're going to be pretty isolated. But I think when you look at it as the community, when I was on council, you know, there was this sense of like, we're doing this together. We're a team. We're going to solve it. We've got so many people that bring all of these elements to the table. And when I first got elected, I felt like the most uneducated person at the table. And then I quickly realized that a lot of the people, the higher educated people, were like very tunnel visioned. Now, they were like, it was what I consider like, they're like a sword, but the sword can cut in a bad way or a good way. And so I had that ability to look at things with common sense and to say, hey, wait a second here, why aren't we thinking about this? And it would be like, oh. And so it taught me that each of us have value, even when we don't feel like we do. And that sort of ambition kind of gets me through those things where I can think, you know what I want year-round gardening. I want 1 acre of covered land using biomass and geothermal, and I want Champagnesiac to do it. And like right now, what we're doing with the company is I just received, I think, a notification this week that I got an allocation for Champagnesiac for a commercial lot. But so it's an allocation through our final agreement. So the lot is allocated towards me, but they're going to use this to generate a lease for the property. So it's the first commercial lease that Champagnesiac's ever done. And so what we're doing is we're bringing my prefab shop back to settlement land. And what that does, is it enables Champagnesiac to redeem the taxes that my company pays. So just like the government redeems our taxes to use to provide for the infrastructure and all that other stuff, when it's on settlement land, the First Nation has the ability to redeem the taxes from those corporations. So, and the cool thing about that is once it's redeemed, the First Nation can use that and to help to programs and services like elders, youth education, more infrastructure, anything that they want. So it just really gives efficacy to why Champagnesiac partners with these companies and creates these companies, and how does that transcend back to the citizenship? Because a lot of the times the business strategy is to basically save as much money, reinvest it, and save that money and reinvest it. Well, when you do things like that, what it does is it puts the money in the bank and in the company, and the citizens are on the street saying, I can't afford to buy diapers, and I can't, like, my house is still messed up. So by bringing the company back to settlement land, they're able to say, it's not like I'm saying that they're going to buy diapers with that money, but what I'm saying is they can say, hey, there's this program, or we've got this extra fund that comes in through bringing these companies back to settlement land. So it's my intention to partner with the Development Corp and to work with the First Nations to say, how can we set this up so that we're using the same dollars and we're able to create that value and bring it back into the community while building the infrastructure on settlement land, which also attracts more citizens to live there, because if you have a store and a daycare and a community center and all that kind of stuff. So you can see how I try not to look at things just for the company. But at the same time, I try to find ways that we can build partnerships with, and those partnerships can then what they do is it creates strong relationships and more opportunity for the company too as well. So it's like a little ecosystem, and it's not complicated process. It is, relationships are complicated sometimes, but it's not a complicated process. It's really looking back to a traditional way of looking at things to say, hey, we all have value. And if we were living in the same community 200 years ago, if you got fish, then I'd have fish. If I got a moose, then you'd have a moose. If you needed a house, we would build it. It'd be done. And now today it's more of this separation stuff. And it's one person could be a billionaire and the next person could be starving in the same town. It's like, how is that? Like, where morally, how does that happen morally, right? Like, so I'm looking towards doing that. And what I'd like to do with my company is I'm designing it so that I can back up. So I'm really relying on the people that have come to the company and what they do, and they're doing it at a high level. And so I'm just kind of integrating that culture and trying to give a little oversight. But then eventually I want to back up and I want to be able to start other companies to say, I've got all of these other ideas that I think that have efficacy. So when somebody wants to do something, maybe I have an investment company that says, hey, I'm into that. I want to help you do that. But I want to help in a way that potentially I can invest in something, and then I can pull back and say, look, this is you now. You're on your own. I don't need to invest. You've got the money now. I'll just take this and I'll reinvest it somewhere else. And so it's basically building community. And for me, that's my purpose. I'm not saying that's for everybody, but for me, it's like, if I can leave this world And I know that our grandkids and no matter who you are, Chinese, African, First Nation, non-First, I don't care who you are. I want a world that's better for you. And I think that we can do that. And I'm very positive, about looking for solutions. I think that a lot of times in life we focus on obstacles, and that's it. We get fixated at this person or that thing. And it's like, I understand that. But the way I look at that thing is that helping me get to what I want to get to, or is that just getting in my way? Now I'll share a story before we move on. When I was a young man, I would have to go get gas in the morning, right? So every morning I'd allocate $20, and that's how I would budget my week. So I'd put $20 in my tank, and then I go off of my day. So I started noticing everybody that I ran into complained about the same two things: gas prices. All these gas prices are so high. Hey, or hey, oh look at this weather. This weather is crazy. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Eventually I'm like, like everybody's complaining about things that are out of control. The only thing that we can control is how much we can put in our tank, how much cash is available to us, and two, what we dress. So I just kept saying, well, all I know is I have $20 and I wore long johns today, right? Or I've got $20 and I got sunscreen on today, or whatever, right? Like, and it was just like, and not having to focus so harshly on obstacles allowed me to put that energy onto what I wanted to do. It wasn't a big trick. It was just like, I realized that I only have so much energy. And if I fixate on these things, they take my energy, my focus. But if I can see them, it's not about ignoring them, but it's just about saying, well, what do I want? Do I want to fixate on this and spend a lot of time here, or am I trying to get somewhere else? And so is this serving my vision? Is what I'm thinking serving my vision? Are my thoughts serving me, or am I a servant to the thoughts that I have? And I found that in a lot of ways I was serving the thoughts that I had and not having the thoughts not directing my thoughts to serve me. So it was just a simple adjustment. And the cool thing about it, stuff like that, is that you don't have to relearn a skill. You just have to redirect it.
That was a lot.
It was a lot.
But I love it. I mean, I'm trying to even think like what, because there's so, when thinking about opportunity, you're thinking about how you flex the SGA, how you work within traditional territory to see that tax return, which is super neat. You're thinking about food security. You're thinking about how you integrate traditional values into how you operate your business and making sure that everybody in the community is served. You're thinking about building an investment firm. You're thinking about like all of these sort of big integrative pieces, and all of it, it's just really about focusing on your opportunity rather than your barriers, so that your barriers don't consume your energy and that you focus your energy on what you can actually solve for. So anyway, I think it's exciting. You're always an inspiring entrepreneur to talk to, Les. Have you picked up any new skills over the last couple of years to kind of better position yourself for where you're trying to go?
It's I had to do a presentation a couple of weeks ago. So it was basically a story about how the company came up. And one of the things that I've struggled with over the past couple of years was putting down my tools and being in the leadership role. And I was already in a leadership role for Champagnat in a governance way, but in my company, I'd always been the guy, right? Like with the tool belt and the hammer. I'm the first one on the site and I'm the last one to leave. I'm there on Saturday, Sunday sometimes, but definitely 6 days a week. I'm just there. And my thing was that if I see a guy in the hole digging, I'm digging too. I want them to know that I'm in the trenches with them, and that if we got to do stuff and it's raining, I'm out there. So I struggled with that because of all the staff and all of the opportunities and all of the business end of it. It forced me to stop doing that. And I quickly realized I would be like, I'd be like hammering with my phone and I'm trying to measure something and I'm like, the measurements are off. And I went from being a really good carpenter to being the worst one on the site, because it'd be like, oh, those windows are all framed 2 inches too big. And I'm like, I really have to pull back, and I have to, this image of like the captain that's the first one into battle all the time. That's a very good image, but at the end of the day, if I'm not actually doing the strategic planning and the oversight and the direction, I'm failing everybody. And what I found was that if I come to site and I'm using my hammer, I'm taking your job away from you, and I'm not doing my job. And I'm only doing that because of my ego. And my ego says I have to be here. I have to hit the hammer too, because that's who I am. And it's like, really, this last couple of years is really defining my role with the company, and doing it in a way that adds the most value, and being there sometimes, and I do sometimes once in a while put on a tool belt, but it's like once in a while. But when I do, everybody's like, look, Les has the belt on today. and it's cool. So that's a good thing. But so that's been the hardest thing, but it's also been personally. So it's like it's a personal struggle for me, that it's like this thing where I feel like I'm failing because I'm not doing actual carpentry, but it's just about rediscovering that, and just reminding myself, like, this is where you have the most value for all of these men and women that work for you and all of their families. You need to create more work for them. You need to look for those opportunities. And so it's given me this ambition to say, okay, and that sort of vision that I created for you, being able to have the time to articulate what I want and where I can fit and where my values are, has helped me create that vision. And the opportunity of not having to go and put on the belt has opened up so many doors for me to say, okay, well, I can buy into this. So when everything happened with the company and expanding, I always question, like, okay, this is very successful. This is very awesome. You got lots and lots of work. Is this what I want? Am I still being the man that I want to be for my family, and who I want to be for myself? Because a lot of money sometimes can mean that you're not spending time with your family, that you're not doing things that you want. You might not be traveling or hunting or fishing. And so what I said is, if I'm going to do this and expand, how does it have to look for me to say I'm willing to sacrifice this time with my family and the time on traditional land and doing all this stuff? How does it have to look? And what I articulated to you is what I came up with, which was worth me sacrificing those things for. And so it's just saying, okay, well, these are the values that I have. And it's yeah, I mean, like, it's just kind of, I think that I always said this to my kids too when they were younger, or any young person. It's like, you're going to have to sacrifice. You're going to have to suffer. But you get to choose what to suffer for. So an example is, if you wanted to be a dancer, okay, that's all you want, but you decided not to. And then you pick a job that you don't like, or that's not dancing. And then you're always going to wonder if you could become a dancer. You're always going to suffer and think, oh man, I could, why did I do this? And then you're going to have to do what you're doing and find the love into that. So there's going to be a lot of struggle. If you decided to be a dancer, well, then you're going to have to watch what you eat, and you're going to have to get up and practice. You're going to have to say no to a lot of people, like, hey, there's something going on. Nope, can't. It's your birthday. Here's a cake. Sorry, I can't eat that. I'm a dancer. I got a show coming up, right? Like, so you're going to have to suffer. But the bonus is that when you can choose, like, when you're making that choice, your mentality is completely changed. It's like, yeah, I'm doing this. And then that suffering, it actually becomes almost enjoyable. It's like, I'm doing this, right? Like, I'm getting up today. This is hard. Like, but I'm choosing this. I'm here in the moment.
It's been a really disruptive period of time for the global economy, for the Yukon economy. What are your hopes as we sort of emerge from this pandemic or into our new normal for the Yukon economy? I mean, we've had COVID, we've also had disruptive things like, the First Nation procurement policy as well, and how that kind of moves into the territory. So what are you kind of paying attention to when it comes to the Yukon economy?
Well, everything's more expensive. Housing is more expensive. I keep thinking that the house that I'm in right now, I think it's about 2,000 square feet. I can't remember. But the house I'm in right now, we bought for $375,000. This house right now is probably over $600,000, and we've only been here for 6 years. And it's just like, a lot of people look at that and they're like, awesome, my house is worth this much. It's like, no, it's your dollar's worth less. So if you went to go buy this house, you would have to pay twice as much for it. There isn't a gain in that. There isn't for the families. There's no gain in that. If it's like the money is worth less. That's basically what it is. And so it's a very scary thing. And I look around our landscape to say, well, who in our landscape is trying to reduce the cost of things? It's like, there's government programs that help the rising cost. There's government programs that help you build more efficiently, but it's not helping the cost. And a lot of the times when government puts money on the table, well, it's just like that money gets soaked up and it raises the price of things. The demand is also there too, because there's like free money, so you can buy more stuff. So when people are buying more stuff, the supply and demand starts going up. So that's scary. So what I want to do is I want to look at how to reduce the cost, how to do maybe get into things where it's like rent to own again, and how can we lower the cost of like lumber and material and supplies, and how can we lower the cost of land? And I keep questioning, why is it like this? And I'm not pointing the finger. I'm not saying, well, it's this person or it's this government or it's this. I'm saying the system isn't designed to make those decisions. And we all have to come back to why the system is there, because us as humans got together, citizens got together and said, there's an issue, let's get together and let's work. And so there's an issue now we got to get together, and now we got to see how are we going to reduce costs. And as an example, this is one of my ideas. I want to direct buy from mills. I want to direct buy from suppliers so that we can supply at a lower rate. And the way that I'm trying to approach this is to say, maybe what we can do is look at the social aspect of things and to say, look, for social housing, for women's shelters, for youth centers, for elders complex, for community halls, why are they paying market value for lumber? Why are they paying market value for these supplies? Why can't we direct buy? They're building infrastructure that helps society. Why are they paying market value? And I'm all for somebody making money. I'm happy if somebody is really successful, and it's I'm not trying to pick on companies, so I won't name anything, but there's X company and there's one guy that owns it, he's a billionaire. Fine, you're really successful. I'm all for options. You should have an option. If you want to pay top dollar for something, well, there you go over here. If you want to do something that's going to help our community and you're building infrastructure, hey, maybe there's a door over here that you can access, and maybe you can buy material at a reduced cost. And so then you can build more of those things, or you can do it for less. So that money can be, it just creates more of opportunity. And it just takes some of us getting inspired and pushing. I think that there's landscape there to be able to do stuff like that. Also, for one of my ideas too is to be able to design houses. If I could purchase land, if a company can purchase land legit, and I don't want to get into this too much, but right now, if you're above board, and as a company, I want to go and purchase single family use lots, I can't do that. And I see the efficacy in that. But the way the system is built now is that companies just apply as a person and get all their family members to apply. So one company can get 30 lots, and they can make 300 applications. And so that one company gets all those lots, and now which raises the cost of things, because if that company gets the lot, is able to do that without penalty, then a citizen can't get that lot. So then when the citizen goes to buy it, the company owner says, well, I paid $150,000 for the lot. I want to make 10% or 20% on that. So now I'm going to add that to the cost of the house, which drives up the housing cost. And then, of course, if you're a realtor, you're saying, okay, cool, that I get more money when the houses are worth more. And so now I've sold this house for this much. So guess what? The next house is worth the same amount. And the next house is worth, everything's pointing up. We need some stuff pointing down, is what I'm trying to say. I don't want to get too far into that, and I'm just saying that there are ways that we can do that. Bulk purchasing. If I'm bulk purchasing and I don't have to buy through that, maybe I can come up here and purchase that. I don't want to be in direct competition with other people, but I want to find ways that we can all work together at reducing the cost. I want to see families in homes. And when I went down to this conference once, a housing conference, and this lady spoke and she was just talking about the value of owning your home and the value that it brings to the children and the grandchildren and their grandchildren. And there was this study, it was just like the education level, the health level, like everything was up, like like the emotional competency, everything was just, by owning that home, how it reflected so strongly on that family. And then the chances of the kids are like, they go up like 2 times. The chances of, if those kids own homes, that their kids like 3 times as likely that they'll own homes. And so it's like, okay, cool. I think that there's definitely a lot of efficacy in it. And I'm not saying everybody should own a home, but what I am saying is that we need to start working on being able to reduce this, so that if somebody wants to, a single mom, a single dad, or a family that's struggling, like, they should be able to get into a home and purchase something. And additionally, if you're going to spend $600,000 on a home, you should be able to decide what it looks like. You should be able to decide how the rooms are. It's like, when companies buy up all the lots, you don't get to decide. They say, we've got a house for sale, we don't want to deal with customers. Here you go. You can just buy what we've sold. If you don't like it, there's 20 more people waiting to buy the same home. And that's the other issue too, is that because of the lack of housing and the lack of land, families are bidding $30, $40, $50, $60,000 over asking price. I don't think that there's a moral compass in the world that should do that. Like, for instance, if there was milk sitting here, if there's this cup of water, say you got to buy water, and this water is worth $5. Why are you paying $6 for this water? My business plan is designed around selling this for $5. My profit margins are all in there. Why should you pay more? I just morally, I'm against something like that, because I feel like it forces people that are desperate to just beg, borrow, and steal to just get into a house so they can live. Like, you're putting people that are only trying to house themselves and their family, and you're taking advantage of them. And it's like, oh well, it's a free market world. Should be able to. Yeah, I get that, but there should be another choice. Now, this choice that I'm talking about is the only choice. Everywhere you look, there's no other choice. Why can't we have other choices to say, you know what, when you buy a house off Walker Home Construction, if I say the house is $600 because it's a nice house with a rental property and whatever it is, that's what I'm selling it for you. I will not accept $1 under or $1 over. My business plan is based around $6. I don't need, and so I'll stop there, because if I go too deep, I can get a little frustrated with that part of it.
Well, Lasso, what I appreciate is it's clear what your values are as a human and as an entrepreneur, and how you're trying to enact those values and how you conduct yourself as an entrepreneur. And I think that's really noble. What advice do you have for emerging entrepreneurs?
Oh my goodness, it depends on, like, the general advice. It's hard, right? Like, everybody's in a different spot, and I think I've already given the advice. Find something that you're passionate about, and doesn't matter what anybody tells you, just continue to go after it. You're going to learn, you're going to make a mistake, you're going to lose money, you're going to make money, you're going to, just continue to go forward and check your values, don't sacrifice your values to chase things. And when you get through that, it's just going to happen one day, or it might happen right away, because sometimes people they just have the best energy, and everybody wants, it's like the first thing they do is just everybody wants it. But just check your values, and don't lose your passion, and always question, why am I doing this? Is this just to make $1 million? Because there's tons of people with a lot of money that are miserable. Is there something greater than this that's there? Is there an opportunity that Creator has put in front of you, or the universe, whatever you want to believe, has put in front of you, that is greater than what your own needs are and your own vision is? And it's when you can do that, it kind of pulls you through those hard parts, because there will be hard parts. There will be times, there'll be pandemics, and there'll be this and there'll be that, and as long as you're moving towards those things, you're not failing. I don't believe like that in that, oh, one step forward, two steps back. If you're moving towards your goals, there's no steps back. Even when you fall forward, right? Like that's what I believe. And when you have that mentality, it's like, okay, I'm getting up today and I have something to move towards. It's greater than myself, or that's something that I believe is what has value, and pick it. And I think that you'll be able to attract people in your life that resonate the same, and they put out the same. So I do believe in that.
Les, have you had any sort of shifts in your worldview over the last couple of years because of your pandemic? Anything that's changed how you think about the world?
Yeah, man. I used to be a hardcore liberal, I tell you that. I don't think I am anymore. I think that I'm listening to both sides now, and it's just like, man, you're not making sense when you're talking to them like that. And then you listen over this side, and you're like, well, you are making sense. But then you listen to this side and you're like, you're crazy. Like, how could you say that? And then you listen to this side and you're like, man, I really love how you put that. And so it's like, I'm like right in the center now. It's like, and I think I've been thinking a lot about our politics and our structure. And it's like, why are we like this? Why is it like, it's like conservative or liberal. It's like, maybe there is a balance there. And we've ended up finding a natural kind of thing. And eventually it's just going to straighten out, and it will be more like the liberal. Like it's honest. It's funny because not that we want to get too involved in politics, but Pierre is sounding, he's like the most liberal conservative that you've ever heard. And he's making a lot of sense on things. And you're like, huh. And then, a lot of the negativity coming from the liberals now, it's like, you sound conservative. Like you're sounding really conservative, the way you address people and the way you label people. It's like, it's scary. It's a scary thing. And so, but I do think that there's ebb and flows, and I know that it's a fickle landscape. And you don't get to be prime minister without having dirt. I mean, like not in the system that we've created. So it's not like I don't think anybody's completely wrong or completely right. I think that sometimes people lose touch with their citizens, and maybe that's when things need to change. But I think that we can come with a more evolved way of looking at things. And if we can talk to each other, if we can hear each other out, if we don't just take the lazy way out and paint people with one brush, you're a liberal, well, I'm just going to paint you with this brush, or you're a conservative, well, you must whatever. Like, it's like, well, why are you like that? What is in your life? How has it affected you? Like, that takes time. That's about building a culture of what is it? The language of relationship, not a separation language. An elder, Phil Gattensby and Harold Gattensby, always talk towards this. It's like, can we create a language that brings us together? And that doesn't mean we have to think the same. That doesn't mean we have to believe the same. That means that we create a landscape where we try to understand each other. And through that perspective, we can move towards creating something that is more congruent to what we both want. And you're never going to please everybody. Like, sometimes people are just going to be pissed off, and they're always, doesn't matter what, you cook them the best dinner and they're always going to be like, well, it's late, or you freaking, or there's other people where they're always just going to love everything. And it's like, you mess up, they're just going to love you anyway. So it's a balance of that. And what it isn't is these solid, this is completely right, no matter what you say or no matter what happens, no matter what scenario you come from, this is always going to be right and this will always be wrong. That mentality is a lazy mentality. It's not actually communicating, because in my life, I know there are so many things that I've thought this is right and this is wrong, and I've been in a situation and it's like, man, I was so ignorant to things. I was so ignorant to all of this story from this other side, or I was ignorant to whatever, this scenario. So we really need to get together. We need to have things like this where we're talking and we're sharing and we're open and we're learning from each other, and but in a respectful way. Like, if I have a belief, I can't just throw it in your face and expect you to believe that. And I have to be open for you to say, well, Les, I think what you're saying is out to lunch, man. And this is why. And I'd be like, huh, maybe, or I never thought of it like that. I still might think the same, but I never thought of that. And it adjusts a little bit. If I took anything, I used to work with youth, and I took this can and I said to you, explain to me what you see. And you said, oh, let me do this. And you said, well, I see a bunch of, it's blue, and there's a couple shades of blue and maybe some stuff, but it's all words and I can't really make it out. It's a little shiny. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's fruit, and it's water, and it's life, and it's beautiful. And you're like, no, it's just words. That's all I see. It's just words. Yeah, it's a cylinder. We can agree on that. But and then we talk, and it's like, oh, it is fruit. Oh, and then I can see it. Oh, I see the words. You were right when you saw it from your perspective. I was right. But until we started talking to each other, we never got the full picture. And that's what we need to do in life. We need to start looking at stuff and taking our egos out of it, taking it, and we solidify these things. Like, I know something. I'm going to make a little form, and I'm going to form it up, and I'm going to show everybody I know this. This is the truth. Really? You think? I'm sorry you think that way, because my life has showed me different things, and I'm willing to sit here and talk to you. But if you always have that concrete that's solidified, you have no room for growth. And that's what we've been taught when you're in school. What do they say? 1 + 1 = 2. I'm stealing this from Phil, actually. 1 + 1 = 2. 1 + 1 less. No, 1 + 1 = 2. Okay. What about 1 drop of water plus 1 drop of water? Does that 2 drops of water? No, that's one drop of water still. So not in every application are these things always right. And so, yeah, I mean, there are some consistencies. A jerk is a jerk wherever they are. So, it's like water is wet, but in the Arctic, it's, you know what I mean? There are always those, and then there's never, but it's always these things where it's like, always become interested and always question. It's all right to question things, even the same thing over and over every day. Question things, take those moments. It's like I said, when you're having success, question, is this where I want to go? Is this who I'm becoming through this, someone that I want to be? And if not, make those adjustments. And I think we live in a world where we've had a vast amount of resources at our fingertips. And so it's just, to me, it just gets really, really exciting. And the older I get, the more energy I get. It's like, it's just, I get so excited sometimes. That's why I'm learning how to control. I do like to talk a lot, and my energy does get up, but I'm trying to learn how to direct it so that it doesn't become overwhelming.
No, but I mean, I think in terms of the question around worldview and seeing the impact of political polarization in the public over the last couple of years has been impactful, and the lens through which we see or discuss an issue, whether it was related to pandemic or something else, has been mind shifting for many of us. What's been kind of keeping you grounded through all of this? What's been your wellness practice?
I got a good, when I was younger, I struggled with alcohol addiction. I wasn't into anything hard, but I smoked weed and I drank a lot. Like when I didn't have my kids, when I was usually, somebody was over with some beer or something. And one day I just decided, I looked around my life and I said, I don't have one person in my life that's actively in my life that's sober, or that doesn't have these, like a major trauma and issues. And I'm like, then the pity party started, and it's like, well, why don't I? Why should I be the only one in my life that tries to make healthy choices? And then that only lasted a little while, because I don't let myself be in that place for too long. And it's like, hey, okay, yeah, you're going to be the one. And one of the reasons is because I deserve to have somebody in my life that is sober and strong. And if I have to be that person for myself, then so be it. And then just the side benefits of that is it's just, there's so many, side benefits to that, but it ended up over the last few years, when I say few, I'm like 15, I just started delving into that and slowly working on my health. And I ended up getting elected as a political leader for Champagnat. And I thought, okay, well, if I want to help, if that's what my intent is, it has to start with me. And if I can't help myself, then why am I thinking that I can be here in this position and help anybody else? And what I noticed is that the issues that I struggle with here are the same issues that my family struggles with, the same issue that my community struggles with, and the same issues that come up in the world. And it's like these cycles. You look at these cycles, like all sorts of stuff. And it's like, okay, cool. So if I can solve it here and then it can resonate out, then we can actually do crazy, really cool things. So I created this thing and I said, okay, well, if I'm putting down alcohol and drugs, actually, this was an advice from somebody, I wouldn't say like my friend, because I didn't know her, but I took this course and she was teaching it. And she said, if you're going to put something down, pick something up to replace it, because obviously you got something from that. And if you are just eliminating this, even though it is negative, it still was providing you something that you needed. So I picked working out. So I've created this structure over the years where I'll get up in the morning and I'll work out. And I find it's better for me because I have this goal, this personal goal, and I achieve it. And everything else is built on success. So I woke up today, I did a really good workout, I ate healthy. So everything else is built and resonates from that point, opposed to, well, I slept in and I was late for work. And it's like, then you're building everything on like, oh man, like, in fact, then at the end of the day, when you're exhausted, trying to get the energy to do it. And I'm not saying everybody should do that, but for me, I found that just figuring out what works for me and how it works in the best way and being able to adjust. And so yeah, I mean, like I've created that and I've created my day kind of reflects how I like to start it. So I'm starting a little bit later, like might be getting into work at 9 instead of 8, or you know what I mean? So I have to start a little bit later. But having those consistencies like that really helps support the things that I have to do. And then also like really the team that I have around me, and trusting them and keep reminding them when they ask me questions, like, what we should do. Tell me what you think we should do. And instead of just saying, I think we should do it like this, it's just reminding them that they already know the answer to the question that they're asking me. And then they're the ones with the ability to do it. And it's not, well, what we got to talk to Les about this, or talk to him, how are we going to proceed with that? It's like, no, my whole idea is that I want to create something that is, if I'm not here, and then it can still go on. And that, to me, that is probably one of the only reasons to create something. If I was just to create something that dies with me, then that is a failure to me. That would be a complete failure. So it's like, I want to create something that continues on. So I lost track of the question you asked me, but I think that for me, I have my personal routines, and that really kind of supports me through what we have to deal with. And it's those simple things that I can address and hit that help me be present in everything that I'm trying to do. And I'm not present all the time. Like I know I come across, a lot of the times I come across righteous and like I think that I know all, and I don't. But I'm all right with that. And I'm confident in what I do know. And I'm also confident to be corrected on things that I think that I know that aren't true. And by not having the ego attached to that, I don't take a personal hit when somebody's like, no, Les, you're wrong. And I'm like, oh yeah, I am wrong. Okay, cool, thanks. Right? Like, let's move on. Right? Like, so, and it's just, it's I'm confident in the fact that I really love growth, and I love learning, and I really love being a part of something greater than myself. And that whole vision to me kind of gives me gives me the energy to move through things. I think that a lot of people get frustrated with, and it's like, no, it's worth it. It is worth it.
Well, Les, I just want to thank you so much for your time today and the stories that you've shared. And do you have any final thoughts before we close out for today?
No, I really appreciate being asked to be a part of this. I was overwhelmed when you got a hold of me. So I think that this is awesome. I really appreciate what you're doing, and I hope that you continue to do it. And yeah, if I can support in any way, let me know.
Well, thanks, Les. Thanks so much for your time. Take care.
Okay, see you.